Welcome to the Lady Up America podcast. I'm Diane Canada, your host. I am so glad you're here today. Thanks so much for tuning in, especially if this describes you. If you are tired, if you are exhausted, if you are burnt out, if you don't even want to think about politics anymore, this is for you today. And I'll tell you, this is also for Republicans who are listening or watching today, because this is a problem for us. As we come up on another big election cycle in the 2026 midterms, let alone the special election that we're in the middle of here in Tennessee. This is a problem. You can only exploit fear and anger so long, especially in women, and they're going to check out. They just don't want to hear it anymore. They don't want to operate in fight or flight mode all the time, nor should they. On the other side of the news break with our friend Steve Gill, then we're going to be diving into this heavily today. Hang tight, because I'm on fire today about this. Be right back.
Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. Just lay it up, lay it up, lay it up.
All right, ladies, welcome back. We're going to hear now from our good friend Steve Gill. He's going to give us a great rundown of the most important news headlines at the local level and at the national level. Steve is the founding editor at TriStar Daily, tristardaily.com. It's where I get all my news. You also may recognize him from radio, had a long time syndicated radio career, and he worked up on Capitol Hill in the White House for a while as well. He's been around politics a long time, and so always appreciate him coming on. Steve, welcome back. How are you, my friend?
That's just a kind way of saying I'm old. I get it.
No.
Diane's good to be back with you.
I have a good friend, and we always say, I'm old. I ain't dead, but I'm old. Yeah, gosh, so much going on. I mean, I feel like we could talk for 30 minutes. I know we just have a few minutes, but my goodness, it's like head spinning right now. What's going on?
I think the biggest thing locally is the 7th District special election for Congress as we're rolling into the final days of early voting. November 26th is the last day of early voting, just before Thanksgiving, which means people are kind of distracted right now. A lot of Republicans are not engaged, not turning out because it's not a typical election season, and a special election kind of sneaks up on you. Election day itself is December 2nd, right after people, return from perhaps Thanksgiving festivities. So there is real concern and legitimate concern among Republicans that low turnout may allow Democrats to steal this seat with a 20 plus record for Donald Trump a year ago, for Mark Green a year ago. It's at least a plus 10 or 12 Republican district, but with low voter turnout, the Democrats could easily pick it up. And the Democrat nominee is getting a lot of help from the National Democratic Party, from MSNBC, from the left-wing national media, and they're pouring money into her campaign as well, while she's wearing sort of the Halloween costume still of being a moderate, when she is a avidly pro-abortion socialist, self-described, who wants to be the AOC of Tennessee. And I know that there are people from Jody Barrett's campaign and other candidates in the special election on the Republican side who are still a little upset. They're sulking a little bit because of the way some of the out-of-state money attacked them. But I have asked them how they will feel if they sit home and don't engage and don't make sure this seat stays Republican, if on December 3rd they're represented by this pro-baby killing socialist. They need to think how they'll feel on December 3rd while they sit home and don't get engaged right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Gosh, Steve, it's such a nasty game. It's like they just, this PAC money that came in from out of state on this, the primary. Yeah, I mean, there's good reason for people to be sulking about that. But yes, at the end of the day, you have to go and hold your nose and go vote if that's what you have to do.
Well, and as dirty as the primary is, the Democrats are playing even dirtier. We've got a great story up, I think, right now on John Thorpe, a so-called independent military veteran who is running as an independent. But he is either a shill for the Democrats or he's a useful idiot for the Democrats. Let me give you a brief detail, and they can find out more details at tristardaily.com. John Thorpe contacted the state Republican Party to run for this congressional seat as a Republican. When they told him he couldn't qualify as a Republican because he'd never voted and was not registered to vote until just before he wanted to run for Congress, he then decided to run as an independent. And You've now seen about $500,000 dumped into his campaign with direct mail attacking Matt Van Epps, with TV commercials that mirror exactly Afton Ben and the Democrats' agenda. This out-of-state PAC from Wilmington, Delaware, that is attached to George Soros and the liberal extremist Democrats, is trying to buy this congressional seat with their dirty money. And this John Thorpe character, could disavow this PAC money if he wanted to. But when he decided to run, he engaged a group called Next Gen Agency, that is a far left group that touts on their website that they represent extremist liberal Democrats, including the Wisconsin Muslim Alliance. That's who he picked to do his website. So he is not an innocent. He's only raised about $7,000. He only has about $60 on hand, according to the latest Federal Election Commission reports. So either he's being used by the left or he's complicit. But the fact that he picked this far left group to do his website, that also includes imagery that mirrors Matt Van Epps' helicopter logo, tells me that he is engaged in helping the Democrats take this seat and put it into the far left column. I encourage people to go to tristardaily.com, read this story, share it with your friends, particularly in the 7th District, to see how dirty the Democrats are playing in this campaign.
It's all so dirty. I'm glad that our party didn't let him on the ticket. I mean, I'm at least glad to see that. But oh my gosh, it's just we just have to go vote. Period. We just have to go vote. So yeah, absolutely, 100%. I'm going to be pushing that a lot over this next week, and I'm going to personally be going out later today to go vote myself. We just have to. We have to do it. But the last thing we need, I know that they've been saying, Ilhan Omar and a lot of those people have been coming to Tennessee. This is what I've been hearing in the peripheral, and they've been holding private rallies and rallying their base and all that. Their base is going to be very motivated because they're going to take advantage of these weaknesses, this timing, all these holiday issues and everything. They're going to motivate their base to get out.
Anti-gun David Hogg, who falsely claimed that he was involved in one of the school shootings as a potential victim, came to town to campaign for her just over the last couple of days. And she's bringing in the far left to supplement her campaign. And then they're bringing in literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of far left money to pretend they are something they are not. The other thing is, when you look at the early voting numbers, so far there's about 25,000 early votes that have been cast. About 25% of those comes from the portion of Davidson County. About 25% comes from Montgomery County. About 10% comes from Williamson County, which should be vote-rich Republican votes. Yeah. But in most of the rural counties, the only place to vote early is at their local county courthouse. So you don't have easy access to vote early. And maybe late in the game, Republicans will turn out when there are voting stations around their county. But in Williamson County, for example, the Fairview voting location, I think, opens either today or tomorrow. There are a lot of Republican votes there, but they've not had the opportunity for easy vote access until that extra voting location gets set up. So I think there is hope that Republicans will turn out. Democrats are turning their votes out at this point, it looks like. But the lack of easy access to vote early, again, gives this sprint special election a chance for Democrats to steal it. And we need to make sure that we do everything we can to prevent that. Yeah,
100%. Oh, that just terrifies me to think about this district, because this is my district being run by AOC of the South. No, thank you. Anything. Let's talk about, if we can talk about what's going on at the national level. There's a lot. Could I make a request today? I heard about, I don't know if you know much about the UN vote yesterday, the Board of Peace that was put together. That's freaking me out a little bit. And then also we know the government's back open. Trump's talking about giving dividends back to people on the tariffs, things like that. Anything there that you might be able to fill in some blanks for us?
Yeah, President Trump is lowering the tariffs on a couple of key items, like coffee, bananas, tomatoes, and a few others, beef. And those are some of the things people are still feeling the pain at the grocery store. People need to remember that, inflation was at record high levels under Biden, and you don't just flip a switch and stop that. Although if you look at prices, they're much lower than they were under Biden. And I find it particularly interesting that you've got Afton Bain, again, in this 7th District special election, complaining about high prices, when not so long ago she was driving around harassing and trying to block ICE agents from doing their jobs. Gas prices under Joe Biden were over $4. They're now down in the mid to low $2 range. I don't know who was buying her gas when she was trying to bully and harass ICE agents, but the gas prices now are cheaper if she wants to go out and do that some more. And gas prices affect everything. And I don't think the Trump administration is doing a good enough job to communicate that. Farmers, when they produce their crops, use diesel and gasoline. When they transport their crops to be distributed, when they grocery stores bring them into their grocery stores, they're transported by gasoline trucks. Those gas prices contribute to the price of everything, and it doesn't again immediately change, but we've already seen those prices come down. And then you've got Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, who is still artificially keeping interest rates high to punish renters and home buyers and to continue to suppress the economy to benefit the Democrats. So I hope that President Trump and his team will do a better job of communicating the reality, but also making it clear. Maybe he ought to go stand in front of a gas station with the numbers behind him, pointing out what they were, what they are, just to remind people that when they fill up their tank, they're getting a lot more gas for their money than they were just a year or so ago. Again, it's the visual image that I think sometimes you need to get to as well. And I think this administration sometimes doesn't think visually that basically communicates best to voters.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I hear that the tariff dividend that he's going to be paying out is going to start in 2026. I think a lot of people were hoping maybe it was going to come before Christmas, but it looks like it's not going to be until into the new year. I assume that Supreme Court vote is going to impact. I guess he's waiting for that to make sure they're going to uphold the tariffs before he starts distributing money out of the coffers to Americans.
It's a challenging case because the Constitution pretty clearly puts this responsibility into the Congress's hands, but Congress doesn't respond. I mean, we've got other countries, our foreign competitors, who've been sticking high tariffs on us to keep American products and goods and services out of their countries. President Trump responds. That has lowered the tariffs that our farmers, that our manufacturers face in getting their products into other countries. He has raised tariffs on these foreign competitors to force them to play more fairly. That's producing the results, both in terms of investment here in the U.S. and them lowering their tariffs, opening more of our products into their markets. And Congress has refused to act for decades. So if President Trump does not do this, and I think it is a national security issue, our competitors will have the ability to raise their tariffs, stick it to the American consumer, stick it to American manufacturers and farmers, and we have to leave it to Congress, who gets money from the lobbyists for these other countries, to do right by us. That's not going to happen, and I hope that the Supreme Court can find a way to thread the needle and find the right answer, because Congress definitely has not.
Yeah, I completely agree. And maybe some precedents that were set during the McKinley administration, maybe those will play in. I hope so. But I'm a fan of tariffs. I think that what he's done with that has been brilliant. I know it's hurt people in the interim, some people, but for that longer term payoff and for us to stand up on that world stage stronger, I think it's the right thing to do.
Fixing bad economic policies takes time. And it's amazing how quickly the Trump administration has turned the tide of our economy in just 10 months. And again, I know people don't have a lot of patience, but when you're going to the grocery store and your bread prices, your other prices of eggs and everything else are way down from where they were. I know we may sometimes have a short memory, but people need to remember what these were. Again, if I'm President Trump, I get a grocery cart full of items that you can buy now versus what you could buy with President Biden, just to, again, visually show that prices are coming down and the best is yet to come.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your great report. Please, ladies, go to tristardaily.com and see all the great editorial content they have there. Again, you can trust Steve Gill, tristardaily.com. Thanks so much, Steve. See you next week.
Thank you very much.
It's tea time. Let's take a look at all of this from the faith perspective. All right, I rest my case. We just saw it in the report with Steve Gill. It's like herding cats trying to get people to the polls during this special election. And this is a problem because we're coming up on the 2026 midterms and ain't no women want to go be part of that. I mean, women are just exhausted. They're checked out. They don't want to hear it anymore. They're turning off the news. They just are done. So as a party, how in the world do we think we're going to overcome that? And, I'm just going to talk about a lot of things. I'm just going to say some stuff that needs to be said because somebody's got to say it. And if we don't start facing our problems as a party, we're not going to ever get on the other side and overcome them. So, I'm all about solutions. I always want to focus on the solutions, but what you have to do first, you've got to identify where the gaps are. You got to identify the problems. So we as a party are supposed to be the ones most closely aligned with biblical values. But I'll tell you, we don't really live up to that very well. We are hypocrites. We are judgmental. We are also very, very happy in our little bubble. We really don't like a lot of new people coming into our party. We kind of like things to just sort of stay the way they are, especially a lot of the clubs and stuff. We really just kind of are protective. We're gatekeepers. We just don't want to let anybody in. Now, I understand that you need to vet people. I understand you don't want to let infiltrators in, all of that. But we're a little too comfy in our social groups. It's like a big social club. We got to stop it. So I'll go speak to a big Republican group. I speak to Republican groups all the time, and I'll stand up from the stage and I'll say, okay, how many people in here can raise your hand and list for me one out of our core values as conservatives, as Republicans? And it's like crickets. Half the party doesn't even know what we stand for. They'll throw out things like, freedom of speech, Second Amendment. They'll throw things like that out, but they really don't know. They don't even know our 7, what I call load-bearing walls of our party. It's like they guess, but it's blank stares. It's like deer in the headlights when I ask this question. So that's one. We've got to understand what it is we stand for and why we stand for it. I'm going to go over that in a minute. All this infighting, people trying to out-righteous each other, people trying to hold each other accountable, people trying to call out the rhinos, all this kind of stuff. We're not very attractive to the onlookers. So if we're trying to attract people into our party, that does not seem very appealing. And what's the definition of insanity? Continuing to do the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I mean, we are just blowing it. We're blowing it. The very thing that's great about our party is also our biggest Achilles heel. The fact that we are critical thinkers, the fact that we do have a lot of chiefs in our party, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are used to being the boss. That's a great thing, right? Because that means we're very productive people and very forward-thinking people and all of that. It's also our Achilles heel because it means we got so many chiefs, we got so many people who want to get the credit, and so many people who want to be right, and so it just kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths with all the infighting. People think their way is the best way. They've got the best idea. I just, the consultant in me, for years, I spent a lot of my life as a crisis management consultant. And I would come into lots of different organizations who had partners and had all these different, hierarchies of management and everything. And I would see all this infighting. And I'm going to tell you, the only way through that is to come back to your core values, to understand that we're trying to prop, in that case, the company up, but in this case, the party up, because it is the party that's supposed to stand for those biblical values. And we've got to be more dedicated to that, to serving God, than we are trying to get the credit or trying to get some kind of, puffed up attaboys. We have got to get back to who we serve, and that is Almighty God. And the party is made up of people, majority of us Christians. And we as a church have really dropped the ball in society in our effort to not be weird. We've let the culture kind of water down our faith. We've got a lot of just chicken pastors at the podiums who are not preaching the entire word of God. They're preaching all the love. They're not preaching about repentance and sin and judgment. They're not preaching the whole balance of the gospel. So we've got a 4-alarm fire on our hands in our country, and people are just burnt out. They're just tired. The same way that we clean it up in the party is the same way we clean it up in the church. We need to remember who we serve. We need to have a big enough why that it overcomes this burnout and this apathy. We've got people have lost all faith in our elections. People have lost all faith in their ability to turn this country around. But I say we serve an awesome God, and with God, all things are possible, and we can't just give up. The only thing necessary for evil to flourish is for good men to do nothing. So I get that we're tired. I'm tired too. I get it. but that's not an excuse. We got to stand before God, I think, sooner than we think. I personally think we are in the last days. I think he's coming any minute, and we're going to have to stand in front of him and give an account for our life. And I don't want to be standing there on trembling knees and him say, Diane, why didn't you do something? And me just say, well, I was tired. I was burnt out. No. You don't think Jesus was tired and burnt out? You don't think Jesus felt all the same things we feel? It's not an excuse, y'all. I understand it, and I'm right there with you, but it's not an excuse. Why isn't every Christian running to the battlefield right now? So let's break it down. Let's take a look at where we're at, why we're here, how do we fix it? Okay, sound good? All right. Now let's apply our Lady Up America techniques. Our why has to drive us first and foremost. So as we look at this decluttering step in our Lady Up America techniques, we need to get our why straight. Why do we care? Why should we engage? Why should we show up? Why should we turn out to vote? Why? Well, the biggest reason why is because we are Christians and we understand that this is a spiritual battle, not a political one. This is a battle between good and evil in our country, and our children and our grandchildren are at stake. You know, the enemy is after our kids. Pick up any news report, and that's clearly obvious, glaringly obvious. So we, as parents, as Christians, as the church, are what stand between evil and our children. So that's a big enough why right there. But let's just talk about it from the spiritual aspect for a minute, because Jesus told us to, because he said so. How about that? How about it's not about how we feel? How about it because Jesus told us to stand? He told us to take a stand and push that evil back. He told us to go and make disciples of all the nations. He told us to. He said for us to love God with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind, and to love our neighbor as much as God loves the church, to love each other. So when we just check out as a society, it's not showing a whole lot of love, right? Love does not always mean it's a feeling. Love is an action. We stand as a living sacrifice out of obedience and reverence for Almighty God between evil and our children. So that's a big enough why. I'm sure we can come up with a lot more spiritually, but let's just start there. So because God said so, how about that? Next thing we want to declutter then is a lot of this overwhelm that we're feeling. Why are we feeling that? Because we just don't know what to believe. We don't know who to believe. We can't get our bearings anymore. We don't have any trust in the media. We don't have trust in our politicians. We don't have trust in our government system. So again, how do we fix that? We've got to declutter by coming back to ground zero, understanding what it is as a party that we stand for and why do we stand for it? You know, we get accused a lot on the left, people saying, oh, you're trying to go back to something old fashioned. It doesn't fit anymore in our modern world. It's so antiquated. Well, this is why I say we have to bring our values into the modern day by changing the way we frame it. So I don't refer to our founding values and the 7 that I'm about to go over as something old or something that is antiquated, not something we're returning to. Instead, what we need to do is say we're reinforcing the load-bearing walls of our republic so that the roof doesn't cave in. So just a lot of times the way we frame it can change our whole approach in conversations and all that. So, and certainly in our spirit. So if we sit and we declutter this feeling of overwhelm and all that, if we can just come back to what is it that we believe and just clear out the fog, clear out the muck, right, from our minds and say, okay, yes, people in the party will let us down. Yes, we've got bad eggs and stuff, but the values are worth standing up for. So what are those values? Let's just run through them quickly. I do this very, very heavily in my course. We go into a deeper dive. This is the 7 values that the Republican Party is built around. And I got these from Speaker Mike Johnson. All right. But this is limited government, human dignity, individual freedom, free markets, fiscal responsibility, rule of law, and peace through strength. These are the 7 what I call load-bearing walls of our country. We don't want our roof to cave in. If you remove one of these load-bearing walls, then our roof starts to cave in America, and that's what we're trying to prevent. So any news topic that's out there right now, anything that is overwhelming you, you can immediately get your bearings when you come and you hold it up against one of these 7. So if we're talking about the economy and all right now, we can get our bearings by coming back and saying fiscal responsibility is a key value in our party, and it's worth fighting for. If we're talking about Abortion, we know that's going to come back to human dignity. If we're talking about, all Mom Donnie and his grocery stores, government grocery stores and all that stuff, we know that that's a lie. We know that that's against what we stand for, because we can come back and we can look at our value of free markets. So anything of peace through strength. This is, how do you stop a bully on the schoolyard? By a force greater than itself. You can't negotiate with terrorists. So anything that might be overwhelming you or confusing you in the news, we can immediately come back and get our bearings by knowing these 7 values. But that's what I'm trying to say, Republicans. Like, we need to understand what we stand for. We need to come back to it and be moving toward these things instead of just all the fear and anger and all trying to count on that to drive people to the polls. And I know that just like in the church, just like in our natural lives, we're not near as motivated when things are going good. When we're happy and we're prosperous and our family's healthy and all these things are going good, we tend to get a little bit lazy. So I understand that fear and anger can certainly drive behavior, but we're not built to be in that fight or flight mode all the time. We're not built to run on that all the time. God didn't design us for that. Cortisol shoots up, our anxiety and all that adrenaline all the time. We're not built to function in that constant state of worry and fear and anger. So we got to settle that down. We need to come back to the shoreline. We need to come back to what we believe in, get our true north again. So coming back spiritually, God told us to engage. We don't get the opportunity to just check out. And secondly, understanding what we stand for. So then it's so much less opportunity for that overwhelm to kick in. Now we can be frustrated because people aren't upholding what we stand for. But if we don't even know, we don't even have a starting point. So decluttering is really, really important here as a first step. Second step, we want to attract people and we want to re-engage people to the polls and all those things. We need to clean up our own house. And I'm going to talk to Republicans here for a minute. Very, very specifically. Oh, boy. We have got to clean up our behavior. We have got to stop the infighting. We have got to stop throwing each other under the bus. And how do we stop it? You don't stop it by saying, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. No, what you do is you replace it with good behavior. And Jesus taught us in the Bible, in Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit, kindness, goodness, humility, self-control, joy, patience, peace. These fruit of the Spirit, he said, there is no law against. And again, just this really does reflect on the church, which the Republican Party is largely made up of Christians. So it's one and the same as far as I'm concerned. We have got to start walking the walk and not just talk the talk, because when we're not authentic, we're not walking this out as people, much less as a party, nobody's attracted to it. And I'll tell you, hypocrisy is our biggest issue in the church and in our party. Because we're the ones that are in the fishbowl, right? We're the ones that people are looking at and going, well, they claim to be Christians. Well, they're certainly not acting like one. So we got to clean up our own house. And again, I go into this very deeply in my global course, but we got to do that because nobody's wanting what we're selling. Nobody's wanting to come and jump on board with us when all we are is a bunch of hypocrites. Third thing that we always have to do in our Lady Up techniques, our third step is entertaining. And this is where we're leaning in and we're trying to understand their worldview. If we don't understand where somebody's coming from, how are we going to influence them? And a lot of us spend a lot of time coming in, pointing our fingers and telling them why they're wrong and telling them, all what we think and why our way is better. And you know what? All it does is just repel people, just repels them. So if we don't start to listen, we don't start to learn how to become really curious listeners, really good listeners, we're not near as effective at attracting and influencing people. Now, there's a time, even when you're taking a stand for something, it doesn't mean you have to do it in an ugly way. And it doesn't mean you have to do it in an arrogant way. But I'm telling you, this is why we're losing our shorts as a party, because we just don't get it. Now we move into our fourth step, which is gardening. And this is where the gold is in these techniques, is this is where we learn how to plant very strategic seeds and help people see for themselves why these values that we are so dedicated to, why they are better, why God's ways are better. And again, this is what I'm talking about earlier when I say we need to start running towards something instead of just away from all the bad doomsday stuff that can happen. We start pointing people toward what we're for, what the value and the benefit is of doing it God's way, of doing it the way that we've laid out in our 7 founding values. How does it prosper people? And I'll tell you, this is something that the Democrats are great at. They exploit emotion. The enemy, what he does is the enemy meaning Satan, which I think is the Democrat Party is just eat up with demonic, oh my gosh, demonic narratives and demonic ways that they are manipulating people. And the enemy's been great at it. He's sharpened his skills at it for centuries. So any party that's for the things they are for is to eat up with demonic. They're just eat up with demonic influence. And I will say that on record. I don't shy away from that anymore. You cannot possibly be a Christian and be a Democrat at this stage. So you've got a lot of moderate Democrats and all that. They know they've gone too far. So we've got this window where we can win them right now, but we've got to do it well. We've got to teach them, show people what they're running toward. But Democrats are great at this. They exploit emotion. They twist and turn things just like some half truths in it that sound reasonable and sound compassionate and sound, like it makes sense. And they're taking over our country with this. And meanwhile, we back at the ranch, we don't know how to combat it. So all we're doing is pointing toward what they're doing and saying, we don't want that. We don't want communism. We don't want, but what do we want? What are we running toward? We need to champion those extraordinary values and make them cool again. And again, I go into this heavily in my global course, but if we don't wise up and if we don't start showing people the good side of our party, the good side of everything that is possible when we live out these values, starting with cleaning up our own walk. If we don't start attracting people, we're going to lose our shorts come the midterms. Have you seen what happened in the last couple of special elections all around the country? You would think right now, with as radical as that party is, that they wouldn't win anybody. The problem is they're motivating their bases to turn out and vote, and we're not. That's the problem. And why are we not turning out to vote? Apathy, burnout, exploiting too much on the fear and anger. People are exhausted, and we're just oblivious. So we got to wake up, and we've got to start really being smarter about how we walk out that behavior in our own personal life and certainly as a party. We need to understand, especially when it comes to women. I'm telling you, women are they're just not engaging. And again, when it comes to women, they're like a gated community, and Republicans don't have the code. The only way that you access and influence women is through other women who already also live in that gated community. So this is why the Lady Up techniques are so critically important right now. We need to train up Republican women on how to reach those other women that live in their communities. That's the only way we're going to get them. It's the only way we're going to reach them. And I'm telling you, if we don't wise up and see that, it's going to be disastrous at the midterms. The answer is women maturing in their faith, walking out that fruit of the Spirit, being attractive and confident and winning people to our values. Our country needs a massive revival, but they need to see the good. They need to see God moving. They need to be inspired. They need to be motivated because it's something they're running toward instead of something that they're always running away from. We've gone as far as we can go on that, Republicans. They're tired. We cannot keep the same tactics up. The doomsday text messaging, all the bombardment of phone calls, the attack ads that women are just repulsed by, all these things that maybe worked at one point, they don't work anymore. I want to shout it from rooftops. It doesn't work anymore, Republicans. I'm going to say it and say it and say it and say it and say it, but it's our only path. What are we running toward? We better figure that out. We better figure it out fast. What I'm liking, loving, and learning. What I'm liking, Mary Kay. Y'all, have y'all bought the drugstore lipsticks and stuff? And I've bought them. I keep trying to, it's convenient. You go in there, you run in there, you buy it. It's not the same. Mary Kay, This is just the best lip. This is Luminous Lilac. It's what I have on today. It just feels so good on my lips. It stays. It conditions them. I mean, it's just great. Love me some Mary Kay. Go see your Mary Kay lady. What I'm loving, oh gosh, as we're coming into the holiday season and the Christmas season, 2 of my friends have great movies that are coming out. I want to tell you about it. My friend Kimber Annie is going to be in a movie on Great American Family on Sunday the 23rd, this coming Sunday at 7 o'clock Central Time. It's a movie called A Christmas North of Nashville. So check that out. Also, my friend Megan Alexander, her movie is called The Best Thing About Christmas, and it's going to be on Up Faith and Family on Friday, December 19th at 7 o'clock Central. Congratulations to Megan and Kimber Annie. I just can't wait to watch you guys in action on the movie. What I'm learning is how important stability is. Not only physical stability, but also emotional and spiritual stability. When you operate from that place, oh, it's such a powerful place to operate from. It's like your whole nervous system and everything is just calm, and you exude that calm wherever you go. It's worth doing, worth getting stable in your emotions, in your spiritual life. I'll tell you, I am just learning so much about how important that is. And that's what God calls us to. So I hope you'll dive into that and really start to challenge yourself to stabilize too. It's amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to operate from. All right, ladies, I hope this has been helpful for you today. I am so convinced that the way back for our culture is through God. It's the only way. Our only hope is Jesus in our culture. There's no cavalry coming out of Washington, D.C. I say it all the time. We, the church, are the cavalry. Let's lady up. Let's do the work.
Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. Just a lady up.